But thank you, folks, for joining us. We appreciate it. I am Charlene LaFerrier. I'm excited to be here working with the Boasper groups. I'm here with Beth and Spencer from Lindbergh Schools, and we are going to be talking about teacher lists. Just a couple uh, housekeeping things just to make sure you guys can see my screen okay. You can see my slide, not my notes. Pipe in, and when I'm presenting, I can't actually see people's faces and so forth. So if someone can just shout out to me if there's any questions or issues, I would appreciate it. So bit of housekeeping. If there are any questions that you have, feel free to throw them into the chat or the Q&A section. If we can get to them now, I'm happy to do that. Happy to have people jump in and chat with any questions and so forth, and really want this to be much more conversational and have Beth and Spencer talk about how they have used TeacherLists in the Lindbergh schools. So, but I guess that as we can get going, I really want to just talk about how to maximize back to school success using TeacherLists. At TeacherLists, our goal is really to help schools and families make the supply list process and the whole back to school process easier, more efficient, and more connected. So with that, Beth and Spencer, is there anything that you want to add before we get going?
No, just thank you for having us. We're happy to share our experience. So
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, guys. Okay, so a couple things that we're going to talk about today in really just a brief overview on who are today's families, what are their school expectations, and then, of course, how can teacher lists help to exceed those expectations and really help to create a seamless back to school experience. So in terms of who are today's families and what are their expectations, I don't think I really need to tell you folks who our families are. You probably know better than everyone. But today's families are more diverse than ever. Again, you all know this. In fact, the term family has changed so much. When we say it or when we say parents, I want to be very clear that we're trying to be much more inclusive. It's not just a single traditional family. It is what families are in America right now, where less than 2/3 of them are a traditional family, if you will. The family now are single parents. They're families that are composed of grandparents or living with a mom and dad or a single parent or some type of foster parents or other type of guardianship. There's so many different ways of how families are interacting right now. And most of them are working outside the home, which is such a big variant from where we have been. In fact, back in 2015, our study showed that there was about 46% of families that had both parents working outside the home. Now it's up close to 2/3 of all families. So it's definitely changing. As a result, parents are exhausted, they're stressed, they have a ton of guilt for not having everything done, and they're always looking for ways to minimize that and how do they make life easier for themselves. Couple things bringing this into the back to school world, that when we have done studies and we've worked with groups that have looked at back to school for our families and for schools, 57% of all parents say that back to school is the most stressful time of the year for them, even busier or even more stressful than the December holidays, which was kind of surprising to me when I first heard that, to be honest with you. I think we always have this connotation that that's the busiest, most stressful time. But 60% of all parents were feeling so stressed about back to school that they were losing sleep. And one of the main components is communication, that families want to feel like they're in control. Kids want to feel like they're in control. I think it's gotten so much worse since COVID, and when kids were out of school for a while. There's so much more anxiety. I think we've all noticed that in terms of our kiddos, that that however we can help parents, families, and children feel more in control, the better. One of the ways of doing that is to control back to school, and how can people feel um, like they have that within their grasp. So, in talking about communication and what families want, they want to know before, especially before going back to school, do they have all the right tools? Do they have the right apps, the right logins? Do they have their back to school information, which of course includes school supplies? They want to know that everything they have is available, it's convenient, that it's accessible. They're looking for things. If they want the information, they want it now. They want it where they can find it in a digital component. And of course, everyone wants that instant gratification now, right? That's just part of what the components of our world is now. 91% of all Americans own smartphones. Um, and I think people are just used to that immediate gratification. They want to be able to purchase something online and go pick it up or have it delivered the next day. Same thing with, Netflix and all the other components that we have in the world right now. People are expected to have that instant gratification. And schools is no different. They're looking for that information. And part of the way that TeacherLists can help is by providing that instant access and accessibility to their school supply list. So before we go any further, Beth and Spencer, I want to have a chance for you guys to jump in. Have you noticed the need for more flexible communication, or what have you noticed about this arena?
I definitely think all of us have noticed a need to be more flexible with our families. We did a survey last fall as part of our communications audit, and we found that about 80% of our families were accessing our website with a mobile device. So even in working on our website redesign, we're thinking about what will this look like on a phone. When we're doing our e-newsletters, we're trying to be really mindful of using tools that are mobile responsive and the font size will be big enough when they're reading it on a phone, things like that. But we've also tried to put centralize where we're putting information. So we're moving to a more streamlined communication platform for next year, but in lieu of that, we've been doing a lot of manual processes. So embedding district information in our principal e-notes at the school level, for example, and we create like a back to school checklist email every year that we send out that basically walks through kind of to what you spoke to, Charlene. Like, I'm a parent, I need to get my child ready for school. What are all the things I have to take care of? Transportation, school supplies, getting their schedule. When will I find out who their teacher is? And we try to put all of that in one communication so people can go down that and use it as a checklist.
That's great. It is funny how so many things are mobile. One of the things that here at TeacherList, what we've done is that all of our lists, we test their main component is that they have to be mobile ready. Like that is first and foremost. If it's not ready to roll out, working on the mobile device, then it doesn't get released. And I think everyone's on those phones, right? I know myself. I can't leave the house without my without my phone. So
Right.
kind of sickness. But all right, great. Um, okay, so how can TeacherList help you exceed family expectations and help to create that seamless back to school experience? So in terms of, for anyone who isn't familiar with TeacherList, we take those old paper supply lists that we all grew up with, that were sent home in our backpacks, ended up at the bottom of the section, probably mixed in with all the stuff that was in your locker or your desk or whatever. And we take them, we digitize them, we put them on our platform in an electronic format. And by doing that, they end up to able to be shared with all of our partners, be it our district partners or our retail partners. First and foremost, the TeacherList platform is 100% free for districts, schools, and families. We're free for everyone. We are compensated by our partners. So our retail partners, Target, Walmart, Staples, and such, they want to know what supplies your schools and districts are asking families to bring. They don't want to run out of orange two-pocket plastic folders any more than your teachers want them to. So by accessing our information, they are able to better plan. They also have this information on their on their store website. So if you go to walmart.com or target.com or Staples or wherever, you can actually access the supply list data from TeacherLists that's on their sites as well. That's a huge benefit for families. So regardless of where you're shopping, they can access that back to school information. In addition to that, we have a number of other retailers that are just coming on board that may not be actually shoppable from our website, but they have retail components in store. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next section. But one other thing I just think is super important, or two things, is one is all of our teacherlist.com school supply lists are ADA compatible or compliant. So if you can feel comfortable if you are linking over to us that those lists are ADA compatible. They're accessible for all of your families. And finally, we had over 1.84 million school supply lists posted on our platform last year, which when I think about that and how we've grown in the past 5 or 6 years, it's amazing to me. First of all, that there are that many supply lists out there, it's crazy. Um, but how does TeacherList help schools and districts? So one of the main pieces that we have is that we help to create a strong first impression. We help your families connect with your schools before school even starts. One thing that I think is really important is that supply list has traditionally been the most Googled term in July across for years now. And I think that families want to know what supply lists or what supplies their children need for back to school. It's part of feeling in control. It's part of helping them help their kiddos get everything that they need to feel like they're ready for the new school year. TeacherList also helps schools with our multiple language component. On our iFrame, our integrated technology that you can embed onto your website, we offer multiple languages. We have over 150 languages right now, which allows all of your non-English native speakers to easily access the information. So now they don't have to guess what an item is, they can actually read it in their own language, which personally has been a huge push that we've really tried to do, and I'm super proud of it, is there's nothing like helping your entire community feel like they're part of the process than actually having the information in their own language. Of course, once they go from the supply list to any of the retailers, they won't have that language component. They will have the images, which will help, but it's been a huge improvement for so many families across the country. We also have flexibility where you can schedule your list to be shared with families and retailers when you want. So in other words, if your lists are ready now, but you don't want to share them until the last day of school, you don't want your school secretaries inundated with people wanting to know what class their child is going to be in next year. We have that ability with our scheduling feature. They're able to be, the lists overall are able to be shared in seconds, however you communicate with families. So if that is through email, through social media, or on your website, however you share them, we should have a mechanism to make it easy for you. Again, we're free, we're convenient, super easy to make last minute changes. I love to tell the story of my husband. He was a middle school math and science teacher. He used to he would go to a program over the summer and find some cool program he wanted to add into the curriculum for the next year. The school secretary would be very annoyed with him because he would end up updating what he needed. He would add a folder or a notebook or something. With the TeacherList component, that's not a problem. You can just go on, make any changes that you need done, and they are automatically shared with the retailers. They're posted on your sites. Every place that we share the information or you've shared, the list will be updated. And again, the other component that's really helpful is that we have evergreen supply lists. So if your lists stay the same each year, you can keep them visible year round, which is super helpful. Okay, that was a lot of talking. Back to Beth and Spencer. Tell us about how you guys have been using TeacherList and how long and such.
We've been using TeacherLists since I started, which was 2021, 2022. At least that was the first time when we used it. I can't really speak to what school supply lists were before I started, but I know it was a more laborious and intensive process where we had to have each principal email us a separate list for their school of each class. So, like the first grade would all have the same uh supply list, for example. And now it has been way easier. We get like emails from teacher lists to remind us school supply lists need to be updated for next year, and it takes that off of our plate, or at least lets us like remember it. Makes it easier to remember to update them and to that it's time to send them out. It's really streamlined. I would say that's the word we've been using a lot, our process for welcoming families back to school. Beth can probably speak to how it was before teacher lists. It's just made things much simpler.
Yeah, so before Spencer came and before we switched over to Teacher List, we were uploading PDF documents from our schools. And so the grade levels would get together, they'd put their list together, and then they would email it to us. We would upload it on the site, and then inevitably, like, there'd be a typo or a mistake. And so they'd send us a new PDF and we'd update the new one. And with the size of our district, we really handle the updates to the teacher lists pages, but it's much easier for us to do. And you don't have to do it that way. Like your admin assistants at each school can go in, or teacher lists can do it for you. You send them the changes and they'll do it. So it's just kind of whatever works best with your district and your preference, but it's definitely better than the PDFs, which weren't most of the time weren't accessible. If you don't have a printer, you can't print it out. It's over the summer. So it's been much better for us.
And I can speak to the fact that some people have super specific pencils that they're looking for, and you're able to like link to those so people can at least see what they are if they want to go to the store and buy them themselves. Because you I it like the link helps, and speaking on the evergreen list, we usually pretty much don't have to make a lot of changes, so we'll switch from last year's to the next year, and then I'll make a few changes and that's it. It's just been very simple. It's a nice tool to use.
We have another example like that I was sharing with Charlene is at our middle schools. We have one-to-one devices, and with the iPads, the teachers have found like some good styluses on Amazon that aren't an arm and a leg and don't have to be an Apple Pencil. And so they're able to actually recommend an affordable stylus, and we can link right to it. Same thing with earbuds. Not all the earbuds have the right jack or work correctly with the iPad. So like that saves them a lot of time of having to answer questions, and or somebody buys the wrong ones. And now we have a family who is stuck with earbuds or stylus. It's not working correctly. So that's been really helpful.
That's a great feedback about the specific sponsor brands or specific brands on lists altogether. Because we do have sponsors that help us to, kind of mitigate the costs of running our platform. So you may see those sponsored names on here. If you want to add those sponsored names, you absolutely can. If your teachers only want Elmer glue sticks or Crayola crayons or um, Mead pencils or whatever the item is, you can absolutely offer those and add those onto that. If not, you can just add all generic items. Makes no difference. It really is totally up to you. We've tried so hard to make it as indicative of what your lists will be and what your teachers actually want, that we are really able to take care of most needs. I don't know that there's anything out there that we haven't been able to offer onto the platform. So that's great. I just wanted to show briefly how it looks on Lindbergh Schools, and this was from their 2024 supply list information. I believe it's still up on their site right now. They have all of their schools listed when you click on that school, that goes right to the actual list on another page in their site. And then their back to school checklist, which I thought looked great as well. I'm sure there are other ways out there that I didn't capture, Beth? There may be.
Those are the main ways that we share it out. Our principals also will put a direct link to their school in their e-notes for families. Some will link it from social media. So David asked in the chat, are we the sole conduit from the district to TeacherList, or can principals and teachers do it too? When we first came over to TeacherList, because it's a free platform, we noticed that some teachers in our district were already using it. But we also like to control things, and we like consistency. So we are the sole conduit, and we liked the list to come through us first. And that way it also helps us with our elementary and secondary. They've really made an effort to have supply lists be equitable across buildings. And so we're not asking for way more things at this school than we are at this school. And also that we're not asking for things that the district budget provides. So it helps to have our sets of eyes on it before it goes out to help meet those goals too. But again, other districts I know are a lot larger, or maybe it's a different setup. TeacherList is flexible with us.
Yes, definitely. We are able to handle however your district or your schools want to use it. We have some districts that not all the schools within the district are using us. There's only a handful, and then maybe another group, they're not providing supply lists for that year. Say, PTOs are providing it, or an outside group. So it can really be however the district wants it to. We also have some districts who have a district admin, and then have school admins for each of their schools. So they are there to kind of oversee it, as Beth mentioned, but then each school, typically the school secretary or the computer teacher, whoever that lead person is, then uploads and is our main contact at each school. Any other questions? I can't see the Q&A. So thanks for jumping in there, Beth.
I don't see any other questions right now.
Okay, great. So talked a little bit about how TeacherList helps your schools. How do we help families and parents? Again, our platform is available 24/7, desktop, mobile, any of our retail partners. We talked about the fact that they're viewable and shoppable in multiple languages. We also have a setup where parents can be notified when lists are posted or updated. They can just sign up to have that notification. As always, families choose the retailer and how they shop, and that's really important to us. It's different from some other mechanisms like a supply kit fundraiser or so forth, where you have to purchase from one kit company. This way, using TeacherList, your families can purchase all or none of the items as needed. So if you only want to purchase a couple of them each week, you can certainly do that. The lists are always up to date. They're ADA compliant, and it provides the convenience that families are expecting. So this is just kind of an outline of how it looks from the website, where this is, we have Lindbergh's site listed here. It goes to the actual list itself, where you can purchase, and then right over to, in this case, it's Target, to show what it looks like in the shopping cart. Another just a kind of bullet point out there that I thought was really interesting is when we asked folks about supply list shopping, 89% of families preferred having a supply list to actually use before going out shopping, to actually know exactly what teachers in the schools want. And I think that's really important, because I think sometimes people don't want to provide the list because they don't want people to feel, like they're being told to purchase certain things. But families want that. They want to know what their kids are going to need. They'd rather purchase it now than, find out after the fact that they should have done something. So one of the best components about the TeacherList component platform is that one-click shopping, that you can go right from the list, purchase right to whichever retailer that you choose, and purchase those items in just a couple clicks. Couple things that I would recommend is that you post lists early so families can shop as soon as those sales start. Retailer back to school sales usually go live by early June, mid-June or so. All of our retailers should be up and running with their back to school pages. I highly recommend that if you can, to get those lists up there. I know sometimes people feel like it's soon, but especially with everything going on in the world right now, we don't know what the economy is going to be. We don't know if tariffs are going to affect certain products. So if you know if you know the list items, get them out there so families can purchase them early. The other thing that's really important to know is that the prices on purchasing the items through TeacherLists are the same as if they were going to each retailers and purchasing going through each item and purchasing it, adding it to your cart individually. There's no markup. So really families can save a ton of money. I had a lot of families tell us last year that they went and compared the prices for each list on each retailer before deciding where they were going to go shopping, which I thought was super smart. But it's all in using it to make the most impact and make the most benefit for your families. If Missouri has tax-free shopping days, you want to make sure that you're aware of that and are sending something out on social saying, hey, don't forget shopping, tax-free shopping week is here. Here's your school supply list. It makes a big difference. And again, that translation feature that I talked about, which is super helpful. Back to Beth or Spencer. Curious what the response from families were when you first introduced TeacherLists.
We actually haven't gotten much of a response from families in the way of like, yeah, everything's good, because in communications, no one tells you when things are going good, just when
That's
it's
right.
going bad. But
Yeah.
I can honestly say we haven't heard anything from bad either. And I send out like the emails to the principals to like get the updated lists, and they've really said good things about TeacherLists and haven't had any problems, and they've had good things to say as far as ease to use and the like how much better it's been than the PDFs that we used to use.
Awesome.
What I would
That's
add to what Spencer said was like, normally when you roll out a new product or platform for your families, I feel like you need to sort of onboard them and train them. What getting no feedback basically told me how easy this was to use, because the only thing we did was use that video that you saw embedded on our homepage to tell them that we're using TeacherLists and here's where you find it. And the parents could take it from there. So
awesome.
we look at
That's
no feedback as good feedback.
Yeah, yeah.
it is, no news is good news, right? That's
Yeah.
how I feel about my kids sometimes. That's awesome. Have either of you used TeacherLists yourself as a parent? Not sure if you guys.
Yep, I'm a parent here in Lindbergh, and so
Oh.
I've used it, and I've used the previous system too. One thing I wanted to say, so when you're talking about like today's families and everything, and so I was raising my hand like, yes, that's me. My kids love to go back to school shopping though, so it's like a tradition with them, and they
Yes.
want to print it out and go to the store and do all that. But all of us who work and have kids too, it's usually like the weekend before school starts, and we get to Target, and it looks like tornado blew through it.
Yeah.
So we take our little printed out teacher list around and like get our expo markers, get our folders, and inevitably there's like 4 or 5 things that are not there. So the nice thing about teacher lists is, even though we still like go shopping and use the list, if we don't get everything, I come home and I go online and I can fill my cart with everything that was missing. So my kids
That's
still get to
great.
do the fun like shopping, and
Yeah.
I totally agree with, that's why I brought up the example of the earbuds, because my daughter started middle school this year, and like the technology piece, knowing exactly what to get, that can be stressful if you don't have any direction from your school district. So
Right.
I think
Sure.
it's super easy to use.
Good. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. So I jumped ahead, sorry. One of the things that, speaking to that I know with my own daughters, they were one of those people that they wanted the same color binder with the folder and the notebook. So what I did is I would end up buying all the boring stuff, like the pencils and the scissors and all that stuff. And then we would go to the store because it was part of our tradition. It was part of how they got ready for school. They needed to know that they had everything together. And I hear a lot of people do that similar type of thing. So
Right.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So just moving along quickly, I just wanted to show how the multiple language translation feature works on our iframe feature. We have customized integrated iframe that allows you to put just a little bit of code onto your site. It embeds the supply list right onto your back to school page. So you don't have to worry about people leaving and then coming back and so forth. Of course, they do have to leave to do the actual purchasing at the store, but it makes it super easy for those non-English speaking native learners to be able to actually go in and see that all of the lists are there in their language. They can read it. It's been a really nice feature for a lot of families. And then if you didn't have an iframe on your site, or you could have both, this is how the process worked, going from a direct link from a website over to the TeacherList.com site. So in this individual, it's University City, they have a link. It goes right from their website to the TeacherList.com site. You can easily find your school and then your actual supply list. And this is what it looks like when it goes over to, in this case, the Target site. All of the items are automatically matched with specific items at Target. If at any point you wanted to change those, if you don't need, another set of scissors, or your child wants to pick out your own backpack, just unselect them before you add all to cart, and boom, you're done. It makes it really easy. What would you guys say to districts considering using TeacherLists for the upcoming back to school season?
I would definitely recommend it. And I think what I would say is like the service you offer, and not just the platform, but also the service aligned with it, basically takes this off our plate. So we're spending a lot less time on school supply lists. We're able to offer a better end result or product for our families. And it's just been, I honestly was telling you, like, I can't think of any reason not to make that switch over. So we've been really happy. Spencer?
I want to address, Marcy asked a question about, is there an easy way to print the lists? And I just went on to Teacher Lists and found our schools. And if you find the schools via the Teacher List website, there's a printable list. I don't have that linked on our website, so that is an oversight on my part, and I will probably do that this year. But when I just signed in through my account, I was able to like bring up a nice usable printed list. I think that was just my own undoing of not sending that or putting that on our website. So I will do that in the future, I think.
And I wonder, I'm glad you found that, Spencer. Charlene, I wonder if you could even brand our lists with our district logo.
We can't add them to the iframe itself. So the site that you folks are having are kind of a legacy product through the old Blackboard, now Final site. So when you transition to the iframe, you should have that component to have the printable list. It's just a little component on there. I think it's just because you have a legacy product. But what we have found is that by having the district name on it, most folks have their branded logo above it. So we didn't include that on the iframe, but it's something that we are looking at for the future. So we may be able to add that. Because what was happening is that was then having two logos, on your, like, the header, and then underneath it would have the logo. So we took it out, but we're trying to figure out a way of, some people have asked for it, some people don't want it. So trying to make everyone happy.
That makes sense.
But yes, so we also have the other piece that we have on the list as well is a QR code. So that makes it really easy for folks too, if to be able to look at it from the QR code and then be able to print it as well. So there are definitely people that like to have those printed copies. I usually recommend that that you print out some of the copies, leave it at your, in the office, on the table, or however you guys have your information. It just, sometimes people just like to have that piece of paper. I get it. So.
And to address Marcy's question in regards to like sending the list to the retailers, we actually have QR code signage in Walmart and our other retail partners. So come back to school season, parents can just scan that code and get to teacher lists and their list directly that way too. So you won't need to run around necessarily and pass out the paper copies.
Yes, and you actually don't need to at all bring those lists to Target or Walmart or any of our partner retailers, because we do that. When you add them to our platform, they are automatically shared with those retailers. So What ends up happening is if you send it to, say you have your pieces of paper, I know my old, our school secretary used to go around with these bundles of paper and go to Walmart and Staples and Target. Now they take those, they just throw them out because they don't need them. And if they don't realize that they already have it in the system, they turn around and upload that coming back to us. So we end up getting it in twice. So the thing that's nice is that we automatically take care of that for all of you, for all of the retailers that we partner with. We also have a couple retailers that we're just starting to partner with, Dollar Tree and Family Dollar being one of them, that we won't have that one-click shopping convenience that we showed earlier, but they will have the QR codes available in store that Hannah just talked about. So that's I know that a lot of people have been asking about that for, to help those families that are really just want to make the most of their bucks, keep those numbers down as much as possible. So that's been a nice feature as well.
That is nice. I'm even thinking the QR code could be helpful when we do like a back to school press release for our local newspaper to like put that QR code for the district in it.
Yeah.
And have it available that they could run that so people could get there that way too.
That's a great idea. We have a fair amount of districts that did that this year. We have one district in Texas that actually has a back to school magazine. It's beautiful. I don't know how much it costs. Like, it's beautiful, but it has that QR code right in there. So that way it's up to date all the time. Families, when they're sending it out in, probably getting it ready to go in January, February, they don't have to worry about those lists being up to date. All they have to do is add that QR code, goes right to the district page, and it helps them out. So we can certainly help you with that as well. It's right. It's pretty easy to do. Any other questions? I can't see the Q&A, so thanks for jumping in on that. All right. So just wanted to show some of the many districts using TeacherLists. In Missouri, we've been so thankful. David's done a great job in helping us to connect with people in Mosford. David, we really appreciate you and all of the folks in Missouri. A couple of the features just wanted to touch on really quickly. The scheduling feature that we talked about on our teacherlist.com site right now, we do not have all of the multiple languages that we do on our iframe. That should be coming hopefully by June, but fingers crossed. Our dev folks are pretty underwater right now trying to stay afloat with everything. But we do have a Spanish translation feature that can just go back and forth between Spanish and English. This is how the middle feature is how families can sign up to be notified if there are any changes at their school, and a couple of the different ways we have of sharing that are ready-made in both English and Spanish. This tip right here of the school supplies are ready. I can't tell you how popular it is. I see it all over the place in terms of social media. It's a nice eye-catching one. They're all available to just download for free. Spoke about it before. We are 100% free. There's no fee for any of our services. We're not, we are compensated by our partners in terms of our retail partners, as well as our sponsored brand items, but there's absolutely no obligation of you to use any of them. If you want to just use teacherlist.com and encourage your folks to go to the dollar store or wherever they need to, that's absolutely fine. Our role in the school engagement team is just to help you guys use it as much as possible. So if you want to have all generic items on your list, do what is right for your families and for your teachers. Before changing your Crayola crayons to generic, though, make sure it's okay with your teachers. I have a lot of upset people when that happens. But in terms of how you get going, super easy. You just want to send us your lists. You can either use our Power Loader, which is on our website. We recommend our concierge service for our district leaders. If you are sending us multiple schools, it's much easier to use our concierge service. It comes right to us where we are notified. Either Hannah or I will be notified immediately if one of our territories has submitted them, and then we can kind of keep an extra eye on them. So that's the first way. And the next component is to add our digital shoppable list to your website. So I am a strong proponent of the iframe, that integrated technology. Can't say enough about that. The Accessibility for multiple languages is it's a game changer for so many families. We also have banner links, URL links. We have multiple EdTech integrations for various partners that can easily work, but very similar to what Beth and Spencer are using at Lindbergh. And that is it. That is what I have.